repeat and then eventually graduated. But the reality, don't you think the reality these days is because person X knows Rachel who does so-and-so at this place. Therefore, that sort of granted them the job. Yet person A, first class degree, very good at the skills, did not get the job. Isn't that the reality of today when trying to apply for a job?
I think that might be the reality in some places, but I want to challenge a little bit. So I'm going to come to your point. But I seem to, when I hear charities speak about, you need life skills, you need critical thinking skills, and that you're going to get all these at university. Sorry, which university is doing this? Yeah, which Zimbabwean university is doing this? Because when I'm seeing students coming out, I'm not seeing life skills. I'm not seeing any critical thinking. And my challenge to any of you watching out there is if you have those skills, hey, I want to hear from you. In fact, post in the comments now that you know what critical thinking is about. Because I am not seeing the critical thinking. So when you come into my workplace for an interview, and I'm expecting those skills, but I'm not seeing them. So that's my first bone of contention, and especially in Zimbabwe. So I don't know if that's being taught in the University of Cape Town. I will not interview students from the University of Cape Town. But when we talk about the tertiary education in Zimbabwe, I'm not seeing life skills. Then let's come to the point about networking. Is networking important? Absolutely, networking is critical. But if a person is getting a job just because they know somebody, then clearly that is not an organization even I want to be a part of. I want to be a part of an organization where the skill is valued, the networking is valued, and those they have to balance out against each other. Just because you know how to smoosh someone at a party doesn't mean that you can get the job. And once again, show me Zimbabwean students who know how to network. The average university student's ability to network is sending me a message on Facebook and saying, "Hi, Joe." I'm like, okay, why? First of all, why on Facebook? You give it So we don't have networking skills. We don't have critical thinking skills. Well, that's what I'm thinking, but I'm eager to see what the comments say.
That's fine. And then that's also brought to another thing that maybe Macbeth can talk about, that the skill is important, but how is a young graduate getting the skill? So an application advert would say 0 to 3 years experience. I've just gotten fresh out of university. Where am I getting this skill? And then I'm not going to get this job because I don't have this particular skill. So maybe Macbeth, just lead us on to that. What do you think about the work experience requirements that are, in most of these adverts that we have today?
Thank you so much, Rachel, for that. I think the previous speakers, I think both they are correct, and I would like to agree with them. But maybe what I also would like to point out is that I think the education bar has gone up now. If you remember previously, people would get a job maybe with an A-level certificate, or maybe to get it with a diploma, or for some positions. But now you realize that maybe due to the high unemployment levels, people are saying that when they finish their undergraduate degrees, they are going straight to masters without the experience. I think I've had a discussion with a colleague and saying, okay, how can you be a master of something that you do not know? So the bar is gone up a bit as compared to what it was before. Then in terms of the actual skills and experience, indeed, there is no creativity, there's no innovation on our graduates. And I think this is something that maybe the universities will need to look at. Then for the employer, what you want is value. I'll give a practical example for an NGO, which I work for. For us, we want results. So if you have to bring someone who is new, who doesn't have that experience, then it's a challenge. But then the graduates still they'll still fall out. So what we are basically saying is, okay, how can we then support our recent graduates to cover that gap? So what we've done now is to introduce an internship program to ensure that at least they are covered and all that is addressed. But I think there is need for collaboration between the learning institutions and employers to see how best you can maybe have a curriculum that will address all the gaps that have been identified by the previous speakers.
Okay, that's great, Macbeth. But maybe whilst I'm still on you. So you introduce your internship program that runs for 6 months. Then So what are we doing for these young graduates now? Because I've done your internship program for 6 months. Yes, you have taught me what you've taught me, but equally I've been giving you my skill. So what then are you doing for me after this 6 months? Because we can't say, okay, we're taking you in for 6 months, but what happens to me after the 6 months? Because I'm gonna still need a job.
So what I've also learned, or what I've observed during my tenure, is that 6-month period is actually an assessment period where you are being assessed with your capabilities. If you do well, chances are you'll be absorbed into the system. And if you do not do well, then I think definitely you will not be, there won't be any space for you. But what I've realized is most recent graduates, they do not take the internship seriously. Their attitude towards work is pathetic. Even their commitment to work is, they'll just view themselves as interns. But what I maybe advice that I'll give today is that is an opportunity for you. You will be assessed during that period, during those 6 months. And there's a possibility that maybe if you do well, you may be absorbed into the system. Not that I'm saying it's automatic, but it's another layer of review that has been put in place by employers to cover that gap of experience. You realize that maybe some, they are taken up or promoted without 3 years experience, but maybe they are promoted maybe with 1 year experience, or even just the internship to say, this person is a good finance person. Maybe we need to offer them a job. That has happened in several institutions. So maybe just also to add on to say, if you have noticed the trend, where you do your attachment, normally that is where you will also be employed. And what they will use is how you have performed. So maybe the advice would be, when you go for attachment, or when you go for that internship program, take it seriously and do your best to demonstrate your skills and abilities.
All right, thank you, Macbeth. So I am a recent graduate with just less than 2 years under my belt. And I hear what Macbeth is saying about, how you perform is, equally what they rate you on.
Yeah.
But when I am joining your organization, and this is for you, Charity, I'm joining your organization, I've just finished school and, I've gotten a job. In the first 6 months, are we then saying I am working to learn? Is that what I'm doing? Oh, I've started earning my living. So, because essentially, even if I do not know as much, I'm still offering you a skill. And people go to work to offer skills. So, what am I doing in this 6 months? And so, am I still going to work, or am I going to school still?
Right, I love that question, Rachel, and I find it in the attitude we also receive, and I believe, Joe, you alluding to the questions and things you've spoken about, that's a challenge you come with. That attitude of saying, I've graduated, I've made it, I'm a professional, therefore, I'm in the work, I'm giving you my skill, my knowledge, but guess what? You're not. You're in the workspace and you're here for me to teach you the job. Yes, you've learned it academically, but you don't know how to apply it practically. So those first 6 months is a continuation of your learning. It's a continuation of whatever you want to do. So go in it with an open mind. Yes, you're offering, yes, you've learned something, you come with your skills. You're probably teaching this icicle here, how to use the technology, how to use social media and all those lovely things. But remember why you're here. You're on an internship. This is a learning program. I am here to teach you as much as I can while also learning from you. But in terms of scale and balance, it's skewed towards the employer because you have more to gain from me at that stage than I can gain from you. That's why after the 6-month period, we can decide whether or not to keep you if we feel you're valuable enough. In most cases, if we have imparted knowledge well enough, then you're worth keeping because I've invested in you and I wouldn't want to lose an investment. So go in it with an open mind, in it to learn as well as to impart, but go in humbly. Go in humbly and it will be a win-win situation, I guarantee you. I've worked with lots of young people who come in it and after 6 months, we're like, oh, do you have to go back to school? Because we've gained so much value from them. And they've also gained a lot. We've given them a lot of experience and they're already at a higher level than when they came in and they're competent enough to be called an employee just as much as everyone else.
Okay, thank you. So following up to what you've just said. So after 6 months, and I think by 6 months, we assume that, it takes roughly, that time to have taught a couple of things that central to that particular environment. Does it then follow? And if it does, I want to know why so many people are complaining right now that, so I'm done learning, done quote unquote, in this 6 months. Why then do we have so many people still having grievances, 2 years later, because their work is still not being appreciated? So if at this point, let's say after the 6 months, they're now working to earn, why do we still have so many people grumbling about, how they're being treated in this environment? Because I think the misunderstanding is, we have Rachel who has joined us straight from university. Rachel is always going to be seen as straight from university until she finishes. So what do you think about that? When exactly are we going to take Rachel as someone who's amassed the knowledge, has the skill now? So let's pay Rachel what she's worth. When do we do that?
Okay, so I think it's two-sided. It's a two-sided question. I've experienced it myself, being a very young person going into the world of work, feeling very competent. But I went into it with the view to learn and to be appreciated for what I offer. So you need to study the environment in which you find yourself in. There is no cookie cutter formula to the workplace. The workplace you find yourself in is different to the workplace your friend finds yourself in. So if you share notes and you decide, I want what Rachel has in her workplace, therefore, whatever she's getting, I need to get, then you'll be sorely disappointed. So you need to understand the environment in which you find yourself in, open your mind to new learning opportunities, apply yourself. So I'm learning, you feel you're not, I've learned, I've mastered this concept, I think I'm ready for the next challenge. Talk to your supervisor, ask for new opportunities, learn more, make mistakes, correct your mistakes. And I believe in a fair organization where you have superiors who can see and acknowledge your achievement, you will progress in the way you expect, but don't expect it to just happen to you. You have to be proactive in the process. Ask for consistent feedback. How am I doing? I've been here for a year. I feel I've achieved 1, 2, 3, 4. Be vulnerable. Allow yourself to get that criticism. And I'll say, no, you know what, Rachel, you've been doing very well, yes, but I think you don't take criticism well. Therefore, in order for you to get where you think you want to be, how's about you do 1, 2, 3, and 4, and let's have this conversation again after 3 months. So if you're proactive in the journey and in an organization that is fair and understands, and I'm being realistic here, not all organizations are the same.
Yep.
There are some organizations that have very unfair labor practices. So that's why you need to study the environment that you find yourself in. Remember also, the induction period is also a period for you to interview the space in which you find yourself and decide, is this where I see myself in the next 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or progressing at all?
Okay. Thank you.
I want to pick up on that, because I'm going to say what I think she said in a very short sentence. And that is, if you don't like it, move. You're not a tree. You know what I mean? I find this question from you. If I'm not being recognized, what are you waiting for? The Jewish people are waiting for the Messiah. Is that what you're doing? Are you waiting for recognition? And what is recognition going to be? A billboard. So let me flip that coin. I recently spoke to several members of my team and I said to them, listen, I'd like you to come and see me and negotiate a pay rise. How many of them do you reckon I've asked 4 of them in the last 4 weeks. How many of them do you think have pitched up?
4?
None. And you know why? They lack the skills. They lack the negotiation skills. They lack the ability to articulate and say, this is what I would like to be paid. And is that being taught? And I think this is where we're going wrong. Where, you're complaining to your mates, I'm not being paid and whatnot. But you don't have the guts to go to your superior and say, I've done this. I expect to do this, and this in the next 6 months. If I achieve, so for example, let's take an example. If I came to you and I said, Rachel, in the next year, I'm going to make $100,000 for the company, okay? If I'm on track in the first 3 months, would you consider giving me a 25% raise on my salary? Now, how are you going to say no to that? Because I've defined it. But what do? You hear, first of all, is, boss, I think I need a raise. And okay, where's that going? And I think that we need to teach those skills.
And maybe whilst I'm still with you, Joseph, so I understand you run a family business.
Yes.
So now, with family, do you still then, I know, and so many people get involved in, family businesses because either they can't find a job in the corporate sector or maybe they want to, continue the legacy. But would you still have that money discussion, and would you still want, let's say, your nephew or son, etc., to be working to learn or working to earn? What's the position there? And do you still want your son to come and say, oh, dad, I've got this 3 months plan, and then after this, I think you can give me a raise? Is that the same dynamics when you're in a family?
Well, that's a brilliant question, because one of the 4 people happens to be my son, who hasn't come and seen me yet. But he knows the parameters that he has to do. And my son doesn't have to come and see me because he doesn't report to me. He reports to his own boss. And he needs to have that conversation with his boss, which I believe he hasn't had. But my son is not 18 yet. You know what I mean? So, and I don't make no excuse on that, but he knows the parameters, and he has, if he wants to earn more, he has to go through that negotiation. Now, let me give you, while you're on the family, I'm passionate about family business because I believe that corporate wasn't always corporate. At some stage, the business most likely was a family business. So I have a 14-year-old daughter who's running her own business already. Now, she does not intend to be a business person. Her intention is to be a doctor, but she's using the time to learn how to do that. And I think that's something that we should encourage everybody to say, start something. Don't wait you don't have to be 25 to start working. You don't have to be 25 to earn. I remember selling super cools when I was in Form 2. Both my parents were teachers. So it's, again, just for stereotyping, everyone looks at me and thinks, I'm sure your dad has got a store downtown, No, exactly. My parents are teachers, but I've learned business by doing things and failing.
All right, that's fine. And then maybe now I want us to move to the discussion. Yes, we're still, looking for the job. We haven't found the job as yet. But I want us to talk, and this I will start with you, Charity, because I think it affects, and I would love to think it affects women more, maybe to an extent. What do you think about special treatment in the workplace? Do you think we should have, especially in this day and age, do you think we should have lenient requirements? Because, this is Charity, she's a lady. And let's say this is engineering, for example. So, let's give Charity a bit of leeway because it's not really women's work. Or do you think, okay, let's hire Black people, for example, because we want to diversify the culture. So we can't have, white. So let's also have a Black person there. We can't have men. So let's also have a woman there. Do you think those special requirements should be there, and that special treatment should still be there in this day and age?
So we still find ourselves in an environment that is not diverse, if we're being honest. It depends. Like in a white-dominated country, there may not be that many Black people. In a Black nation like Zimbabwe, you might not see all cultures represented. You might not see all genders represented. So we still need to be intentional and deliberate in balancing those scales. For example, in my team, if I find that I'm the only woman in the team and I need interns, I'll be a bit more deliberate in the way I recruit. I won't say I only need females. But when I'm recruiting, it means I have a quota. So this is why companies are more deliberate. There's affirmative action, some say quotas, 25% women, and that's the rule. So which means when you're employing, you're not making it easy for the women. Remember, you're taking people to interview who are qualified for the job. So Rachel, you're going to fight as hard as the next person. But we have that in mind, that maybe in this scale, I might give Rachel an extra point compared to a male counterpart, but not because she is less of an achiever, but because of the objective I'm trying to achieve. So in the end, whoever I'm going to take in still meets the requirements, but has been given a leg up. So there's a difference between equality and equity, for example. So it's about who you give that step up, but not being unfair. These people need to be qualified. If I'm saying I need university graduates who have achieved maybe a first-class degree, and I have Rachel and Simon here, and I need a woman, and they have the same qualifications and skills and achievements, I'll probably take Rachel. So that's how it should be looked at. It's not about, oh no, I need women, you come, I'll take you. Doesn't matter what you have. You still need to maintain that level of professionalism and maintain the skills level that you have within your organization.
Okay. And maybe I'm coming to you now, Macbeth. I hear what Charity has said, but what I want to talk about and, draw more into is, should we even look at the fact that, let's have 5 women applying, or should a skill be a skill? If Rachel can dig a hole, then let Rachel dig a hole. If she can't, then that's it. Should we be looking to say, oh, let's take Rachel and Mary, and then if they can also dig holes, then we can give them the job? What do you think about, or even ethnicity, even not just gender, ethnicity and race and all? Do you think that matters, especially for ethnicity and race? What do you think about that?
Thank you so much for that. And I think for me, I personally think that hiring should be based on merit. What is that you can do? What is that you cannot do? But then I also agree with the previous speaker to say that we have got previously disadvantaged populations that we also need to include in whatever we are doing. So I think the deliberate effort is necessary in doing this because of the historical well-being that has been there in our workspace. So I think the deliberate effort is quite pivotal to ensure that at least everyone has got an equal opportunity for inclusion. That was I would say. I think she has just touched on all the critical points on that particular issue.
Thank you, Macbeth. I hear you, and I'm still with you. So, again, you're saying because of historical disadvantages, and I hear what you're saying, and that's great. But if today we are saying, women can do what men can do, why are we still focusing on historical disadvantages? Because today we've decided to change it. So why can't we just decide today, Rachel has the skill, has the qualification, she can also get the job, or she can't because she doesn't qualify, not because she's a lady.
Yes, so we have changed. So remember, this is something that happened, I think, over the last 10 to 15 years. So it's an ongoing process. It's not an event. It's something that we are working on doing as a country, I think all over. So it's a process. We are almost there, but not yet there. So we still need to take due consideration to those things that have been disadvantaged by those other groups. So I think we still need to make deliberate efforts towards empowering the previously disadvantaged groups.
Okay, thank you. And I hear you, Joseph, saying, So today, if you were hired today, and then they tell you, we appreciate you have the skill, but we'll give you manager position because, we're trying to diversify our face. What would you say about that?
I'll say, how much? I mean, seriously, if the money is good, and if I think it's because I'm Indian, is that the question, right? Well, I'm glad you gave me that option. But, so if anyone wants to employ me out there and pay me a lot of money because I'm Indian, I'm open to the idea. But on a more serious note, women, even the way you phrased your question, would we let women dig? I don't think that's the problem. I think the problem is, and I know for us, the huge problem, we don't see women applying for jobs. We just don't see women. And some of my best team members are women. And, and I think that's wrong for me to say that. Let me rephrase that.
Your best team members are women?
Yes. Absolutely. My highest performers are women. Okay, barring a few people. I don't want to offend some other people, and they know themselves.
Yeah.
No, so seriously, we are searching for women because the impact that we are seeing women making is phenomenal. So I don't think the problem is, are we giving them the, equal opportunity? I think the problem is women are not applying for work. Certainly in our industry, in the filmmaking sector, we struggle to find women. And I think the attention to detail, and I'm not saying men can't have attention to detail. I'm just saying on my team right now, we have a serious imbalance and not by choice. It's because we are looking for women to come in and join the team. Then the part about the job. So there's been quite a few times we were talking to a recruitment consultant a few days ago, and he said, right now, white people are in demand because there's such a few of them. Yeah. So I remember having a conversation, and I'm going to be brutally honest about this. There was a time we had a conversation internally. None of us are white at work, okay? But saying, hey, guys, maybe we need to employ someone white for reception at the moment, hey? And it was very much about how do we tackle the white community, And it was a conversation like that. I'm happy to say it died at that. We never took action on that. But I think that diversity is a good thing, And why I say diversity is a good thing, let's look at this. If you're aiming to go high in work, right? And if you say, for example, go to an average white person and say, hey, I want a job from you. How are they judging you? What standards are they? If the person employing you has a race bias, that's their problem. It's not your problem.
Thank you. And yeah, I agree and I hear what you're saying. But I want us to have some sort of consensus on this, because I hear what you guys are saying, but should it matter for us to have diversity? Or should we just get the skills? Should we only feel in a position with this particular, okay, let's say in this particular case, we hire Joseph because we know that we're trying to reach certain markets and not hire Rachel. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do.
Exactly. Or should we just hire for the skill? Are we supposed to be, setting in certain positions to be filled by certain people? Or let's just go for the skill? If so, is this still diversity or, target market reaching? Yes, Charity.
It's an interesting one, Rachel, because I'm of two thoughts on that one. I refuse to reduce my standards as an employer and employ someone for the sake of diversity. But I am also conscious of the environment in which we find ourselves. So I don't think you'll find consensus here on this chair here. But I can definitely say diversity is important, and I always need to keep that eye in my employment decisions, but at the same time, I do it at the highest standard possible. So I need to create that level of playing field, and I can't have a one-dimensional team either. So I know women have certain skills that men don't have, so I need that in my team. I know streetwise Joseph here has certain skills that I might not have, so I need him in the pot. I know this kind of race has dominantly certain type of skills. So I need that in the pot to help us be stronger as a team. So diversity is important, but do not compromise the quality of the service you want to produce and the type of people you have on your team. Yeah. Can I touch on quickly? Joe has said this twice, and I feel it needs to be addressed. The fact that as an employer, fresh out of school, graduate, you're supposed to have a certain level of skills, but you don't have them. He touched on people were supposed to come through and possibly negotiate a better salary, but it didn't come through. Women who are not stepping up for jobs, and they're not doing it. This is a problem. This is a problem in the space we have for young people. What are we not doing as institutions, as employers, as parents to empower our young people? So it's looking at skills that are outside school. Yes, ideally, university should equip you with that broader thinking.
Yes.
But it's not happening in our country. So what can we do to be deliberate? And it's not a pointing fingers situation. It's, yes, as an employer, as someone who's enlightened, what can I do to help? But as a young person, what are you doing knowing that this is the problem? I need to step out of my box. I need to learn more skills.
Yes.
I need to stay away from looking at those social media sites that I don't really learn anything from, and learn more skills. Listen to TED Talks, volunteer in my community, do something outside of myself. It's nice to hang out with your friends, but what am I doing all day? Are we just discussing what the Kardashians did?
Yes.
What so-and-so did, who died, whose funeral am I going to be participating in town? the whole day tomorrow type of situation. So you need to think outside of yourself as a young person. The young person today is facing different challenges than a young person 10 years ago. You need to look at that, and there are no cookie cutter solutions this day and age. You need to be in the 21st century in every way. You're on TikTok, you're on Instagram, you're on this, you're on that. What are you doing on TikTok? What are you doing with your Instagram account? Is it just for fun? You need to be deliberate about the fun you're getting. That is the only thing that will open your mind. That's how you'll be able to collaborate. That's how you'll be able to communicate. And we are trying as institutions. I work for Star Leadership Academy, and we're trying to develop the next generation of leaders who display servant leadership, accountability, responsibility, tenacity. If I'm tenacious, I will go to Joe knowing that I've worked for Joe for 1 week, but I think I need a raise. I'm putting myself out there.
Absolutely.
And Mr. Bunga will say, Charity, you need to learn a bit more. But that's the kind of young people we need. Those are the kind of women we need, and it just won't happen overnight. We need to be deliberate. Both young people need to be deliberate. Employers, parents.
Yes.
It takes a village.
Yes.
We agree.
I thought you'd be controversial. I'm disappointed.
And I think that responsibility is not just the universities. Responsibility is not just the family. Responsibility is brother to brother, sister to sister, brother to sister. We must be learning at every single level, because you know what? That's actually what happens in the playground. In the playground, you learn these social skills. You must be learning these social skills. And it's up to every single one of in every interaction. You know, if I find someone who's rude to me or doesn't give me the courtesy at a supermarket, I will challenge them. I will not be quiet. It's not because I want to dress them down, because I'm hoping that they can be better. And I usually only spend time with those that I see and I think, this person's got potential, you know? And I will take my time to say, hey, dude, you seem like a clever person. You know, the least you could have said is good morning, you know? And I think that's something that as Zimbabweans, we're not doing enough of. We are so silent in accepting mediocrity at every single level, especially in service.
In service. Amen.
And Charity, you spoke about sourcing. And I just want to ask, what do you think can be done better, especially today? Because I think we have a situation where, you know, people in human resources, people who have to look for and headhunt with these people are going to the same places. So for example, we'll have people going to the A schools only because, you know, we want someone who can speak in English, I'm sorry to say.
With an accent.
With an accent, exactly, with a nice accent. And, you know, that's when we have so much talent just going away and floating away because that talent was never given opportunity. And I know you're at Star Academy. Maybe you can just look into that and, you know, talk to us about that a bit.
Okay, so that is definitely an issue that is there. We tend to be, what you call it, biased because of accent. Sometimes for me, to be honest, accent turns me off because it distracts you from substance, right? So as leaders who are mentoring young people, as mentors, as employers, we need to move away from that. We recruit young people from different parts of the country, Benga, Beitbridge, Harare, Bulawayo, everywhere. But what I'm looking for is that. I call it that. But what is that? I'm looking for you to be able to articulate to me. You can't articulate in English, articulate it to me in your language. What is the problem you think you're finding in your community, and what do you think we should do to solve it? You can't tell me the government should. You should tell me as young people, or what can I do to solve it? And that has nothing to do with your accent or how well you speak your English. It's about how you process information and how you communicate it. You might have communication challenges, but it poses for patience on your part. You will find sometimes you have a 5-minute interview and that person does brilliantly in 5 minutes and articulates them well. But sometimes you have a 30-minute interview where that person needs a bit of time to articulate themselves, but puts out very interesting information that you can process and say, this makes sense. That you then need to work with, because when that person comes in, I'm not working with the content because you have the content, I'm just helping you to articulate it better. Yeah, so we need to be patient. So there's a level of patience that needed empathy, understanding, and understanding that we're not from the same backgrounds. Equality, equity. Some people need a step up in order for them to be just as competent as everyone else.
All right, thank you, Charity.
I
And
think okay. I wanted to totally agree with Charity. I think what I've also realized in my experience is that in certain instances, you realize that someone who fails to articulate in an interview may actually be the best person for the job. They will do it so well, more than the one who have articulated. Some people are very good at talking, but they're doing part to be something else. And maybe just to take you back to Joseph's point that maybe women are not coming up, I just need to state that for my sector, I think it's the other way. We have more women coming in for jobs and doing so well. So maybe it's something that has to do with the sectors that we are operating from. But otherwise, deliberate effort, I think, is critical for all. Thank you.
all right, thank you, Macbeth. And maybe whilst I'm still with you. So I wanted now to look at, you're getting into a workplace and you're getting into an environment with people who have been working together, let's say 5 years plus, people with their own dynamics, etc. Do you think it should be important for you to get into a workplace like this and, try and fit in, into that space? Or do you go to work? Do your work and provide the skill, go home?
That's fine. So every workplace has got its own culture. It's a work culture. It's not individual culture. So if a new staff member coming in, you also need to fit into that culture. Because remember, I think almost all organizations, they emphasize on teamwork for results. So for you to be able to do that, definitely you need to fit into that culture. But obviously, you need to know what to take and what not to take. There may be certain things that you may not want to take on board, then you can just leave it out. But then there are other critical work culture issues that you need to absorb, that you need to fit into as an employee of that particular organization. That would be my take on that issue.
All right, thank you, Macbeth. But Macbeth has just talked about certain things that,
How do you like my workplace culture?
You're welcome.
Hey, Rachel?
Yes.
I mean, is this acceptable?
Of course not.
Is it? And this is, I'm glad we agree on it. I've had to teach university students that you can't sit like that at work.
Oh, wow.
But carry on with your
But
point.
yes, but don't you think now that's exactly. So this is where you've hired someone with an accent and then they come and sit like that, don't you think this is personal character of the person?
It is. It is personal, but I think by the time you're hitting 20, I'm assuming that you're around 20 when you're coming in for an internship, right? If your family hasn't told you that you can't sit like that at work, you've got a problem. You with me? And I'm willing to do 1 week where I will give room to interns and say, right, these are acceptable, these are not acceptable. And I want to flip the thing. So, I think there's a huge responsibility on corporate when it comes to students. There's absolutely zero planning on receiving the students and giving them guidance on what needs to be done. There is no information available on their website about what is their internship program going to look like. There is no way I can prepare even for an interview. If I want to go and work for any of the companies, there's no way I can prepare. And it's almost like they want to keep it in a shroud. It's no secret. The questions I ask at an interview, I'm happy to give you those questions. Because it doesn't matter what your practice answer is. Because if I'm judging you on practice answers, dude, seriously, I'm not interviewing well. I recently had a phone call from someone who was a referee, right? And a human resource person from a corporate calls me and says, I would like to do a reference call. So she calls me on a Friday. I'm on my way to lunch. And I say, listen, I can't take a call right now. Let me chat with you later in the day. We failed to connect, right? Monday, I get a message from the guy who was supposed to be, I was supposed to do a reference call, saying, Joe, thank you so much. I've got the job. And I'm like, wow. On Monday afternoon, the reference person calls and says, I have already given him the job, but I thought, let me just have a conversation. That's pathetic. This is ticking a box for the sake of ticking a box.
It is.
The good thing is this kid is amazing. He deserves the job. So I have no issue with that. But can you imagine how that decision was made? Yeah. And I think that corporate responsibility needs to be about internship. What's the plan? You're coming in for 6 months. Don't just sit around. There must be a plan. This is what you go through. Have an onboarding checklist, that in this week 1, you're doing this, in week 2, some sort of a guideline. I'm not suggesting that, all 8 hours should be covered, but a guideline is important. And I don't believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe Zimbabwean corporates offer that.
But I think it makes it to what you spoke about. So I would just come to you, Macbeth. On you said, at times the employer feels they're doing something for you. They're teaching you something. Yeah. So at times I think the internship program is, this is really bad, but it's because someone somewhere feels they're doing you a favor by hiring you, which I want to reiterate and maintain. When you're doing a job, when you've applied for a job, you're offering a skill. You're not there, to just go and donate, your service. And yes, Macbeth, you may share.
What I wanted to say, I think just relating to what Joseph has said is, I think the biggest mistake is that now organizations or employers, they are now seeing interns as cheap labor. And because of that, the expectations are too high. And when the interns fail to deliver, then they say, no, this one is not performing, or we've got issues with this one, they're not doing so well. Yet I think it's up to us as employers to really capacitate these interns and maybe communicate clearly our expectations. And as you have said, come up with a plan. What is it that we're going to teach you, and how are we going to be doing it? So that's what I want to say. Organizations, I think now more mainly they're using interns as cheap labor, where now we are seeing a lot of full-time roles being substituted by or being taken up by interns as a way of reducing costs of labor.
Yes, thank you, Margaret. And Charity, yes.
Yes, so I want to bring it back and echo what Joseph here said, because it's very important. And I understand your frustration. And like I said, not everyone is doing what they're supposed to do. And yes, there are some who are looking at interns as cheap labor, graduate recruits as cheap labor. But you know what? An internship program is a lot of work for what Joseph said just now. When I'm recruiting interns, I recruit 50 interns for the internship program. But what I'm doing here is capacitating them. And that's why we need to be deliberate. That's why you need all those checklists. I need a great onboarding program. I need to teach them grooming and etiquette, because I know it's not out there. I need to teach them how to communicate, how to send an email, how to address me formally and via WhatsApp. I don't expect a hi from someone who just walked into the organization yesterday and you're talking to the CEO of the organization. So those kind of things are falling short, because yes, we're looking at the bottom line as employers. Number two, we're getting lazy because it is a lot of work. I am trying to groom you. Yes, you have a lot that you're bringing in, but I acknowledge that you're coming in, but there are gaps that I need to fill in, especially if I'm looking to employing you. For me to employ you, I have to be selfish in how I groom you. I have to make sure I feed you with all the skills I need so that you're worthy to be part of the team and you excel and do just as well as everyone else.
Yes. Thank you very much, Charity. Thank you, Joseph, and thank you, Margaret. So I have so much to ask, but there's also questions coming in that I need to attend to.
Yeah.
So now I want to move on to the very rich questions I'm seeing here, and and I'll be asking them to you guys as they're coming in.
Okay.
So this is a question from someone who says, in regards to finding the necessary exposure to acquire these soft skills, people skills, and some insight into a certain field, say investment banking, what advice would you give to a 20-something-year-old in university looking to gain those skills and exposure outside the traditional attachment year? Maybe Macbeth, you can take this. So this is someone who's saying, where else can I get this skill outside, my 6 months on attachment?
Okay, sorry, I forgot to unmute. That's fine. Thank you. So, I think I did mention it in my earlier presentation when I talked about the need to volunteer. So, besides your attachment, you just need not to wait for the attachment period. You can start volunteering, even maybe from those semester breaks. You can volunteer your time. if you approach us, we should be able to give you some space to do that. Then we've got clubs. There are certain clubs that are there, the Leo clubs or other youth clubs that are there. I know they have got systems, they have programs that they run that may capacitate you in terms of maybe financial skills or anything that you may need. And also maybe talk about even the church. You can use it to learn one or two things. I know there are committees within the religious institutions that you can also benefit from and learn one or two things. So come talk to us. Maybe one or two opportunities may be granted in terms of volunteering to refine your skills.
All right. Thank you very much, Macbeth. And this is the next question that I am not sure I even understand because, it's very complex. So wish you guys luck. So this question says, Zimbabwe's HTE that's higher tertiary education.
Thank you for telling me that.
Has moved to Education 5.0 curriculum, which was launched in 2019. My question is, are we still condemning the Education 5.0 in terms of bridging the gap between industry expectations and university curriculum to make sure graduates meet the requirements of industry?
So I have no clue what the person is talking about, so I can't answer that question.
I can only guess, but I don't want to be left field on
So maybe that person can just give us an explanation and, we can move along to the next question as we think about that. And then someone says, how does the workplace handle issues of sexuality? That is a person's sexual preference. And this is in line with something I was going to ask earlier on, that do you think our personal business has got a place to do in the workplace? And equally looking to the place that, we don't exist in isolation in an island. My problems don't stop being my problems, and Rachel does not stop being Rachel as soon as she walks, through the doors of a particular organization. And I think this is what this person is talking about, and maybe we can touch on that.
Okay.
So, can I go?
Go ahead. Come after you.
So I think there's a couple of areas there: sexuality and do you leave your feelings at the door? So I think in Zimbabwe we're in a really tough situation because I think compared to the rest of the world, our opinions are still very different. And I'm using the word different, not anything else, right? I think we have a long way to go before we can say we are as open-minded as the rest of the world. When it comes to feelings, I think that workplace and the understanding of how important the home has been forgotten in Zimbabwe, and I know that a couple of years ago, I changed my perspective and I said, you know what, if a person is not happy at home, the chance of them having a productive day is almost zero. So I've made a huge effort. When I see a member of my team, I'll ask them, dude, is everything okay? If it's not, I always, please, I'd rather you not be here, and it's an educational process, whether it be for leadership, whether it for staff. But I think that we have to understand that, and the pandemic has made it even clearer for us now, that you're working from home. The chances that your kids are going to walk into your room is really, really high, right? So I think you can't expect things to be left at home. At the same time, it's different. If you're a heart surgeon, I don't think you're saying, can my kids come and watch while you're performing surgery?
Yeah. Thank you for that, Joseph. And we are cultured British in our way, right? And in the work sense, that means you leave your feelings at the door and you can't be professional, put up a face, I don't care whether the world is crumbling around you. But in this world that we live in, especially with COVID-19, where people find themselves working from home, telecommuting, working from the office some days, we need to bring that into the equation. For you to be a responsive leader, a responsive employer, you need to take the full package. You're going through a divorce, your child is sick. I need to accommodate all of that for you to be able to be productive at work. We've found that we, in our organization, in the past year, for an employee to be productive, some had to give their phones to their children to use for online classes, which means you're not on hand to answer my calls when I call you. So we'd had to look at, okay, do we give tablets to this employee, whatever we have, to allow them to use their own device. So the tablet is a basic one you give to your children to use so that you are available to me. You're experiencing problems in your household. okay, what can I do to help if I can help? It's marital problems, maybe go for counseling, but can I make it better for you in whatever way possible? So it's a conversation. We can't afford to just check our feelings and leave them at the door. We have to be a bit more engaging. We have to be a bit more human, and think about what the different individuals need. So it's not a one size fits all, but it takes empathy and understanding each employee and what needs they find themselves in that particular time.
But Cherry, I'll just get a clarification from you on one thing there, with your permission, Rachel. I think the moment you say that, we should be empathetic, I find that the burden of empathy lies on top leadership. Whereas my advocacy is, well, I can take care of the team that reports to me. And I think the hierarchy is really important here. But then the middle managers need to learn how to be empathetic to their direct reports. And I find that that's missing.
Yeah, it's a problem we've also found, and it's a skill. So as much as we're saying young people need to learn skills, we also need to learn skills. You've also shifted into this space that maybe we're not trained in, whether informally or formally. So we need to be more deliberate. In the past year, I've found myself watching more TED Talks, reading more articles by management consulting companies on how to handle staff in this situation, how to handle the transition, cascading information down, because top level, we communicate at that level. But how do you cascade that information to bottom level? How does a CEO who's been CEO for 10 years put themselves in the shoes of someone who is a cleaner? So it takes a different kind of skill, right?
Yes,
so there is that need to be understanding and make sure that all levels are connecting.
All right, all right. Thank you very much, Charity. And now I would want to open up the Zoom for live questions. So the host, you can just raise your hand and the host will unmute you and you can ask your question.
No question.
Is there any questions?
Either we're doing a really bad job and no one has any questions for us.
We've stunned them to silence.
Or they heard that Joseph might answer the questions and they're terrified.
So that's fine. I can just ask one or two questions that I still have here.
Yeah.
There's someone? Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Simon. Yeah. So I think I would want to direct my question mainly to Charity. Is our conversation right now mostly on skills? Like what type of skills are you coming into the workplace with? Or we are now mostly talking about the mindset that you are coming with, because I feel this is probably what comes with value addition to the workplace, and which I feel might be employable, because when we look at it, most of the people who be coming in to the workplace, they have almost similar skills, but what differentiates them is the mindset that brings value to the workplace. So my question is, what is more employable when you're now looking at it from an employer perspective? Are you employing for skill, or you are employing mostly for the mindset that you're coming in with? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's Simon.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Simon, for the question. And you bring a very valid point. We recently just completed interviews, and everyone was highly skilled. They could, just on qualifications and the paper CV, you couldn't pick one person from the other. But the questions that you throw in there, just to hear how this person thinks, that are usually aligned to your values as the organization. That helps you figure out whether this person's values, mindset, views in life are aligned to the space they're going to find themselves in. So very much so, mindset brings in that extra thing that makes you attracted to that individual as an employee. So your mindset, that's why it's important to always research the place you're going into. I find myself, if I'm going to be part of Mr. Bunga's team here, I need to find out from what he's putting out there, from his team, the kind of environment. And I need to decide beforehand, is this the space I want to find myself in? That affects my mindset. If I just go because I need a job, it will reflect in the way you answer your questions, in your attitude, even in the way you sit and present yourself in the interview. So mindset is very important, and it gives you that extra edge and sets you apart between, am I just another brilliant candidate, or can I actually get into the job and do the role well and fit in within the organizational culture?
Thank you very much, Charity. Thank you very much. Any other question for our panelists? We can take one more maybe. Another question coming through?
Hi, my name is Munya. I just wanted to ask from a marketing perspective, if there is anything wrong, this is on diversity, by the way, if there's anything wrong with me hiring someone because I want to get to a particular target market. Let's say I hire Joe because I know that Joe may be acceptable to a certain target market. Is there anything wrong with that? With Joe having the skills as a base.
Should I take that one?
Take it away.
So it's Munya. Munya, you know what? One of the most common mistakes a lot of people make about me is they assume that I would be very good at selling to the Indian community. And that's a big mistake. So already, as from an interview perspective, you've lost, because I don't have a huge amount of connections in the Indian community. So there again, already it reflects that this is a dangerous game. You know, it depends on how you are evaluating a person. Having said that, you know, especially in marketing, knowing your market, knowing your audience is really, really important. So if you have done the study and you realize that this is the market you want to target, and you have on your team 3 different people, then choosing the person to send for this particular target market, I don't have any issue with that, because the person is already on your team. But I think it would reflect very shallowly for me if a company is recruiting somebody because they've just started going for a particular target market. I think I would look at that company as, wow, they are reacting so late in the situation that they want to target this market. Now let's expand that just a little bit. If I want to target the Middle East, you don't send Joseph there. You send someone who speaks Arabic. Do you understand what I mean? And that is not a problem. When you're searching for someone to target a particular market, if you want to target the Chinese market, your requirement is, dude, do you speak Chinese? You know, if you don't speak Chinese, I don't think I want to send you to the Chinese target market.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Joseph. One last question from the live feed. And in the meantime, I'll ask you, Macbeth, this question that I've just received. Yeah. So, how is a person who is not good at talking during interviews, but is very good at the job, supposed to express themselves, given the fact that most interviews are oral? Any advice for such people?
Okay, that's fine. Maybe I'll start by responding to the second part of the question to say now modern day recruitment practices, they now include a practical aspect where you will actually be asked to do the job, maybe in 5-10 minutes or maybe 30 minutes. You will do a practical assessment that you'll be required to do. But then if you are not able to articulate very well, it's also good to just say it in the interview. I'm not able to articulate this, but I can do it for you. I can demonstrate. It's something that you can do even during the oral interview process. To say, articulating is a challenge for me, but I can do it for you. I can show you how it's done. You can say it in the interview, and I don't think you'll be marked down for that, unless maybe it's a public speaking job. That would be my advice to that person.
All right. Thank you very much, Macbeth, for that. And at this time, I'd like to thank all of you for joining me today. The discussion has been lovely. I wish we had so much more time to talk about these things, because there's so many topical issues that are here and, concerned with the work culture and the workspace, and, what young graduates need to know. So before I close off, maybe if, you can just take a short while to share whatever you want to share just for a bit before you close off.
Thank you very much, Rachel. And this was a very stimulating discussion. Thank you, Joseph, for pushing us and helping us think out of the box. But what I'd like to say is directed at the young graduate who has all these lovely dreams and want to get into the world of work. Number one, manage your expectations. What you see on TV, what you hear from your friends, either locally or overseas, might not be what you will experience. So if you manage your expectations, go in this with an open mind and go through the experience. You will learn more out of it and you'll be less disgruntled. And use initiative. We're finding that more and more nowadays, young people are not using initiative. We're moving into a world where information literacy is important. By that, you need to be constantly able to learn. Learning doesn't stop. So you don't always work to learn. Well, you always work to learn, basically. You're learning constantly. You can ask anyone at the age of 50, 40, who's in the workplace and they're studying something, because we are in a very fast environment and we need to keep learning. So be information hungry. Don't take it for granted that an opportunity will be created for you. We're in a very frustrating environment where, yes, you might not get the job, but you need to start thinking about out of the box. If the opportunity is not created for me, I don't get a seat on the table. How's about I create the table? And that's a discussion for another day, but we need to start opening our minds to the environment in which we find ourselves in. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, Josie.
So if you watch Suits, you might get this. If your name is Michael Ross and you have a memory like nobody else, then you don't need to worry about skill. I think you can nail any job. But if you're not Mike Ross and you don't have a photographic memory, you're going to need to work at your skills. And when I say work at your skills, there are many skills that need to be worked, whether it be soft skills. But the one thing I can assure you, that you are the same as everybody else in the world. You have the exact same 24 hours. So if you can't get the job done, don't cry wolf. Don't say it's because the world is unfair, because I didn't get through to the interview. It's about how prepared are you for that job? How hungry are you to get out there and get that job? Sometimes you have to make yourself available. When Charity was talking about, look at the workplace. Before you come to an interview, if you want to work at some place, go as a client. You can pretend to be a client. You don't have to go in there and say, can I walk around? Can I have a look? You don't have to do that. Surely look amongst your relatives. If there's a job you want to do, find somebody that does a similar job and say, please, can I spend an hour with you at work? Can I ask you some questions? And you'll be shocked that there are so many people out there, professionals, who if you ask them in the right frame of time and right frame of mind, they will make time for you. But it's up to you to make that first move. So I think that's really important. Then to close off, my challenge to the people that are viewing today, ask yourself, are you a giver? Are you a taker? Are you a matcher? So tonight, you have joined us. Did you make an effort to share this event with your friends? If you didn't, then maybe you're just a taker. Maybe you're not really interested in sharing that information. And if you have a chance to share that still, we'd like to reach out to more people. I think the goal for the Jesuit Youth Office right now is to reach out to all the young people. And the challenge is, if you know about it, share that information. So my challenge to you is do that. In closing inbox, I'd like to give away a copy of a fantastic book by Adam Grant. And if you'd like a copy, I have a digital copy that I'm giving away tonight. Inbox the Jesuit Youth Office and say, I'd like a copy of this amazing book, which is about thinking again. And we're going to do this every episode of Frankly Speaking. We're going to give away one book to help those who are interested in learning more and reading more. So that's my challenge to you. Share this information. Let's get talking more.
Thank you very much, Joseph. And lastly but not least, Macbeth.
Thank you so much for that, and thank you to everyone. I think my last words to everyone who is listening is that whenever you get onto the workplace, you will now be a professional. and you'll be regarded as such. So you need to get out of your comfort zone, and you need to get out of that shell. You need to go beyond call of duty. You need to see initiative in everything that you are doing and demonstrate your capabilities and shine. I think that would be my closing remarks for this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Macbeth. And thank you to everyone who's managed to join us today for our discussion. I hope, you took something from it and you learned something from it. And join us again for the third episode. We'll be talking about entrepreneurship. And maybe you can learn one thing or two if you can't, make it into the workspace culture, and try and see how you can build your own table, like what Charity was saying earlier on. Thank you very much. And from the Jesuit Youth Office and the panelists and I, good night.